All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I will call this meeting to order and we can move on to roll call.
All right, so note at 6:32 there. And so I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Mary?
Present.
Great. Catherine?
Present.
Jeanette?
Here.
Ernest?
Here.
Jessica?
Here.
Sue?
Here.
Thanks. I skipped Wolfgang on accident.
Here.
Tovia?
Here.
I'll call Andy. I don't see him, but I'll call him anyway. Not here, I don't believe. Alex?
Here.
And Lindell?
Here.
Before we kind of move on, I wanted to add one matter to the agenda, and that is, I think we can take this up during the work session, but I think we should have a discussion about a follow-up response to our meeting with the mayor and the police chief and kind of what additional advocacy we want to do there. So we'll get to that shortly. I think it is now time for us to come together and jointly recite our mission. So, act as a strong advocate for justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights. All right. Next up is matters by the public. If there is a member of the public who would like to speak, you can use the raise hand function, or if you're on the phone, you can press *9.
One member of the public, but no hands raised at the moment.
Okay, we will move on then. There will be another opportunity for public comment later in the meeting if members of the public join us, and we welcome your comments. Next up is approval of the June 17th minutes. Do folks have folks had the opportunity to review those, to take that up?
I have to abstain.
I'm wondering if we could punt that till the next meeting, since people haven't looked at it and nobody wants to vote on something they haven't looked at. All right, we'll take that up next time.
Just to confirm, did you get it in the previous email? If not, I'll send it again.
I did get it. I'm looking at it now, but it's too long to read right now.
Too late right now. Just wanted to make sure that you did have it. I'll resend anyway, just to make sure that everybody sees it one more time. So sorry for the oversight there.
No worries. We'll take it up at the next meeting. All right, business matters. Update from the chair. I can't say that I have an update as such, but I kind of wanted to follow up on our whatever we called it, our retreat or strategic planning session, kind of back in the winter, when we kind of came together and focused on like an issue and a goal, and we identified that we wanted to push the city to provide attorneys to tenants in eviction proceedings. And we were so wildly successful at that, that we've moved on in some ways, even though there are of course some issues remaining with that. And of course there were many other people besides us working on that issue, but it really was wildly successful, and the city has committed to doing this. And so I want to suggest that we kind of think hard about, identifying another, ambitious goal that we can kind of organize around for the rest of the year, because I know we're doing lots of things in committees and talking about lots of things, but I think, my sense is that we work best when we kind of have a goal that we're organized about. And I want to suggest that we spend some time at our August meeting kind of identifying one or two goals that we really want to work toward achieving in this year. I'm glad to have discussion about this now, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, that I feel like we're in some ways like we're doing lots of things, but we're less focused because we actually achieved this thing we said we were going to achieve, and that is fabulous. Comments, thoughts, discussion? All right, well, we can
Plan.
Okay, well, we'll put that on the August agenda, and please think about, I mean, it certainly can be, an issue that funnels up through the committee work as people are identifying that.
If we have some notes from that retreat that might refresh our memories as to what other items we talked about. And I don't remember if we made them in order of importance, but I'm sure there's other things on that list of things that we talked about, so we don't have to go into something totally new.
Yeah, I mean, we can recirculate that. I wanted to suggest a couple things, and not to take any action on tonight, but to just think about, and I'm sure you all have many fabulous ideas also. One thing that I was concerned about with the policy adopted by the city to provide money to provide lawyers to tenants in eviction proceedings is that it was paid for with, one-time money, and it's not codified in law, and another city council could in a year make the decision not to continue making those payments and investing thus. So, one potential issue that we could work on would be in actually passing an ordinance that would codify this in some way. And that may not be the right focus for it, but I just throw that out there. And another issue that I think is really, really important is the sort of new housing comprehensive plan, and having us speak to it from an equity perspective and chime in. And I realize that looking at that and analyzing that would be quite a bit of work, but I think it's an important issue, and so I kind of share that with you for your thoughts about whether that's something we should take up. Catherine?
I still would love for the Human Rights Commission to think about starting a discussion at least around equity-based budgeting in the city. It would be a way for the city to infuse equity and human rights at every level through the documents that actually govern, the actions that the city takes. And I think it would be a very long-term goal, because this would be a big shift in what they do. But as the commission, we could bring in some people perhaps to come, especially now that I guess we have to have our meetings probably in person soon, but we could still have speakers by Zoom, right? We're all used to that by now. And start thinking about what that would look like.
Yeah, I think that's also a fantastic idea, and that will be in the minutes that we circulate, because we definitely spoke about that earlier. So we'll send that out. And I'd love when we talk about it next time to kind of understand a little more like what our role would be and how we could move that along. But I do think that's a fantastic idea.
Okay.
And that's really it as my update from the chair. Not much of an update, but more of a kind of forward-looking thinking. Wolfgang, are you raising your hand? I'm sorry, I'm so bad at seeing the little yellow hands.
I just put it up.
So,
no worries.
But I say this to all of you, that if you have your hand raised and I never call on you, please feel free to speak up in some other way, because I probably didn't see it.
I threw ideas out there. Todd has been moving this forward over time and reminding us that it exists. But the other half of our goal setting was disability awareness and access, which we have pieced apart to being both accessibility in terms of disability, but also in terms of language. In terms of disability, accessibility, and awareness, we have this PSA project that's been sitting there, has gathered all the pieces of it, and I think we can still piece it together if we want to make that, if we work well with smaller lift projects, this could be an ideal one for both the accessibility committee, the community engagement committee, and whoever else wants to help like get this out the door. Just putting that on the table for us to think about for this next upcoming.
Mary,
Yes, Sue.
I'm just wondering in your chair update, if what you brought up for some other time in the agenda, follow up on with the mayor and the police chief, if this isn't the right spot to talk about it.
I mean, I'm really indifferent as to where on the agenda it goes. And so if
Sounds
we-
like it's a update. I mean, it's something from you that to
yeah.
report to us.
that's fine. Unless there are other ideas that people want to throw out for people to sort of,
I'd like to wait until we get to a little further on planning for the August meeting. I mean, all we need to do for August is take a look at what we came up with on the retreat. And unless we're going to look at it tonight.
no, I don't suggest we do that. I just thought if people have ideas that have been percolating in their mind and they want to put it in other people's brains so we can all percolate together, this is a fine time to just throw that out. We will of course recirculate the notes as well. So I thank folks for their suggestions, and I know we don't have members of the public, but I do encourage members of the public to share with the commission and its members ideas you have for issues that you think we should be looking at. So I'm happy to turn now to our response to the mayor and the police chief. In some ways it's kind of a long time to wait a month after a meeting to respond, but we didn't have time at the meeting to really delve into that. I will just start this off by saying I do think that there's a lot more advocacy that we can do, and I remain confused about the police budget and the inability to kind of tell us what people are spending their time doing. I will just say I don't understand why it's so complicated, because lots and lots of people in different occupations account for their time. So I start the discussion by throwing that out there. I think I would be inclined to follow up on that, and obviously to thank the mayor and the police chief for coming and spending so much time with us. But I kind of open the floor for people's thoughts about what a response should look like and what kind of advocacy you think should happen.
So a couple of things. So one, I understand. I got lost too in the whole, we really stayed on that for a long time about the accountability of police. And I really understood Chief Brackman just saying, we can't account for all of the little things that she was saying. To me, it felt justified and understandable. So I don't understand how us as a group just kept hammering that. I started to get lost. Why is this so complicated? But I think it was a misstep for us that we didn't send out the police, the letter that we put out about police violence. I felt guilty afterwards that Chief Brackney didn't get that. So it's not anyone's fault, but I
am certain that we sent it to her. I think that it may have gotten lost in the email, but I am certain that I sent that to her.
Because I looked back at the email chain and you didn't have her listed as someone that you sent it to. So we don't get, when you send it out, we don't get those CCs. So I don't know who it actually got sent to. I just know from your email, she was not mentioned. I think that I don't know how others feel, but I think I'm grateful for the mayor and Chief Brackney being here. It sounds like regardless of kind of things we maybe didn't get answers to, that they're willing to work with us. And there's things that are happening that we should plug into and tap into and leverage. And so I want to reflect, like, I appreciate them coming in ways that we can regularly have them be a part of our conversations as we're moving forward with things that we're trying to do.
Lindell?
Hi. So I agree with Jessica in that I felt we talked an awful lot or asked a lot of questions and hammered an awful lot about the budget details. And I'm actually not convinced that the budget details really matter all that much, because I think what we're mostly, in my opinion, what I'm mostly interested in is where are areas in which services to the public, interactions with the public can be removed from the police to other agencies. And I'm not sure that we need to know exactly how many hours the police spend on things to do that. I think that what we should do is try to identify the kinds of activities and interactions that are problematic and are concerning to us and focus on that, and focus on partnering with agencies and people within the city who can take over that kind of work. Because I think that's what I'm ultimately interested in doing, is reducing the interactions of police in ways that are not helpful, that don't get what we want. And so, you know, maybe another conversation needs to be had, but I don't think we need to talk with Chief Brackney to start doing that, to start identifying other things that we can do.
Thanks. I think Catherine is up next.
Yeah, so I actually had some kind of specific questions that I don't think we ever got answers to. You know, what has happened with the work on the policies that we did? And is there any point in trying to push that forward? So we talked about that, and then that kind of got brushed aside, because that piece is squarely within our purview, right, of the kind of work that we are called upon to do. I'm happy to advocate around the police budget as a human rights issue. It's not clear where we start and the PCRB ends, right? Like, how do we coordinate with them on that? And is it even worth trying to coordinate, or do we just go ahead as the Human Rights Commission advocating in the way that we are also empowered to do? And then I really would love to get an answer, and I'm not sure we ever did, to the issue around responsiveness. Like, I said that we had issued invitations and got no response and was told that was untrue. I don't know if it's worth pursuing that, but I would love to know the actual answers to that. Who emailed whom, how many times? Can we get some understanding of that?
Alex?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Lindell said, that I agree that the budget details aren't the most important thing, but we do at least need to have a general idea of what it looks like, because if we want to shift services to some other department or agency, we have to know how much of the budget to shift, because otherwise we would run the risk of putting a lot of work on some other department and leaving all of that money with the police department and not adequately funding these other departments.
Sue, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on what Catherine said about policies. I mean, I think we haven't, with new people on this commission, we haven't looked at the policies that we came up with. And I think it's worth a work session of the whole to take a look at those and see if in light of recent activities and so forth, if we need to make any changes in that, and then do something with them, send them to somebody.
Catherine, was that your hand up again, or is that the old one? So, those are good, many fine points. I'm wondering kind of how we wish to kind of present these. Is it, another letter kind of asking these questions and, pushing for the information that we feel like we didn't get completely answered, or what are people's thoughts about the kind of advocacy that we should do? Sue, is that an old hand or your?
Oh, that's a new hand.
All right, go ahead.
I'll just reiterate what I said about, I think would be worth our while to take a look at the policy that were developed, and look at them. I mean, we have on our agendas a work session. We get reports from the various subcommittees, but we can also use that time as a work session for the commission as a whole to review that document and see what changes we might want to make to it, if any, in light of recent activities in the police department. It might help us clarify where we are in relation to the PR, whatever, PRB. No, it's CPRB, got it. So I think it would be worthwhile to schedule that if it requires a separate meeting called the work session of the whole. That's fine too, but I'd like to really take a look at that, and I'm not sure if you want to set up another subcommittee to pull it out and take a look at it and see what they come up with. But I think it's worth the entire commission taking a look at that again. It's been what, like at least a year since we came up with that, and maybe even longer ago.
Well, why don't we ask people to review it? We can send it out again, and ask people to review it in advance of next month's meeting. And I guess we can determine whether it would take such time to discuss that it would require some sort of special meeting, or whether we can fold that into next month's meeting.
So I know budget is a concern for people, and Chief Brackney was pretty clear about everything is posted online. So maybe if Todd or someone could, it's not easy to find. I'm trying to Google what I just sent in the chat about the budget work session. It's not intuitive of where to find these things. So maybe we can get someone on the back end to maybe pull these things, so we can do a little bit of our due diligence and then come with more, come with some specific questions related to the budget. So that's a big concern. And I would personally like to invite Chief Brackney back again on a more regular basis, so that she's in the loop of what we have and what we're wanting to push forward, as I was saying earlier.
I hear what people are saying about sort of being too enmeshed in the details of the budget, and maybe that's not the most important thing. But I will say, as someone who has run organizations, that I think it is possible to say with some specificity how people spend their time as an organization, the percentage of time that is spent on administrative work versus other kind. I think that is possible to do in, even enormously large organizations.
I guess I don't understand okay, you get that, and then what? I guess I'm lost on the kind of the train.
Because if 50% of their time is spent on traffic stops, and that's a made up number, I'm sure that's wrong, and that's something we're advocating should go to a different agency, then that's kind of important to know, right? Are we talking about, is 80% of their time spent on violent crime? Well, that's something you can't really outsource necessarily to another agency. Catherine, I know you had your hand up next, and Liddell, you've got.
A different aspect of it is sort of what you just said. So every time we start talking about police budget, Charlottesville police and their social media teams start pushing out, there was a shooting. This is how many shootings we've had. This is our, nth shooting of the month or the year. And in fact, we know from national data that police spend less than probably 5% of their time on violent crime altogether, of which shootings are only a small percentage, right? So understanding how they spend their time, I think, is really critical in pushing back against the propaganda that we get when we start talking about cutting the budget and they immediately go to shootings. So that I do think it's important. We don't have to know down to the detail, but we should know, as Mary says, a general breakdown of how time is being spent.
Lindell, you were up next.
Yes, so here's what I'm thinking, and maybe Jessica and I are kind of on this, I don't know, maybe, but when I look at my budget, for example, right, the activities that I do, the work that I do, the things that I pay attention to, the things that take my time are not really accounted for in the budget, right? I could say, I think that when we look at the police budget, what we see is how much of it is police salaries. I think what we're really interested, however, is not the salaries and the money, but how much time officers spend doing particular things. And maybe that information can come from 911 calls. It can come from dispatch information, because I don't know that knowing that 50 officers make, $1 million, how is that going to tell us what it is they do every day, right? Because they don't log in that way. They don't, I don't think that the money is tied to their effort. I guess that's where I'm confused.
And I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't know Chief Brackney. I've never met her. It's my first engagement with her. She's on the defensive, and it's like we keep hammering the same questions to her, and she's going to keep responding. So I'm saying, like what you just said, Mary and Catherine, like that's a very specific thing. Like we want to understand this particular data point so we can do X, Y, and Z. I think it's a lot more targeted question than broadly, what do your officers do from day 1 to day 2? What she was trying to explain to us, like how that's a little bit harder for them to explain. So to me, that's where I want to get at, like, what is it specifically we want and information we want, try to do our due diligence to find it, even though the website is a mess, to try to find it, and then come back with, okay, we found this specific thing. We're still missing this. Can you please direct us to that? That's what I'm trying to advocate for.
Yeah, I hear that, Jessica, and I would say, I mean, there was a question I wanted to ask that, we had so many questions, but there is national data that says 4% of police time is spent on violent crime. I think that the Charlottesville police should be able to tell us whether their budget is consistent with the national data or whether they believe they spend significantly more or less time dealing with violent crime. Like those are things that are discoverable, or that is data that can be obtained. And I think Wolfgang, you have your hand up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to affirm what Jessica is saying, that we have an opportunity here to both reach out back to Chief Brackney and also simultaneously do our due diligence with trying to find an answer to this question. From my first iteration on the commission, it took a long time to get a Charlottesville police chief to sit in with us and talk to us. I think this might have been the first opportunity that we were able to do so. And for my own part, I regret that we spent so much of the time focused on budgeting and that the conversation wasn't more productive or more cooperative. And I think that it might be a best way to reach out with an olive branch and say, look, we are looking more into this. It seems like there was an opportunity that we could be the data wranglers and the people asking questions and working through some of the policy things. And that might be a good starting point to try to work towards a productive relationship with the chief.
Lindell, is that a new hand up?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so I still feel as though we're talking about a couple of different things. And what I would prefer is for us to think about what it is we want to know from the chief, right? And we didn't ask the chief some of the things that I'm hearing that we want to know. We didn't ask directly. We were asking about, money and things like that. But what we really want to know is, what are they doing, right? And how do we find out how much of their time is spent doing these kinds of things? But what we want even beyond that is to redistribute that effort, right? Which will mean the money will follow, but what we're looking for is redistributing effort. And so I think maybe we need to set up a different set of questions to ask her this time, to really get at what it is we're trying to accomplish, which is to reduce our reliance on the police handling situations that they're not really great at.
Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, I agree, Lindell. I mean, at the end of the day, what we really want to know is, like, with traffic enforcement, not how much money do they spend on it or how much time do they spend on it, but just if we move that to a different department, how many fewer people do they need and how much less equipment? And I think that's the real question. And then the salaries and the price of the equipment, all that follows from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see that's directly related to budget questions, but I'm happy to reframe that if there seems to be a consensus that we should reframe that in that way. I guess the question I have to follow up on that, and I'll get to you just in 1 second, Jessica, is the next response like sort of a letter thanking the chief, inviting her to kind of come back and laying out some of these questions. Yeah, Jessica.
Actually, Ernest has been holding his hand up, but I do have something.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay. Ernest, you want to go?
Yes. I'm not really concerned with, and I know that was something that people were pushing on about the hours that officers were doing specific tasks. When I'm driving through town and there's an officer sitting on the side of the road with a disabled car, am I worried about, she's not doing, that officer's not doing anything but it's important that she's there helping people get around this disabled car. And we're worried about how much time she's spending doing that. My concern is about policies and how we're interacting with our residents in the city, or my concerns, because that seemed like that was a big thing that was going on, that we had a couple of instances where police officers were not interacting very well with citizens of Charlottesville, and mostly African-American men. So my concern is more so is on policies that can help. And, I would like to know some budget things, but she also stated that they were short-staffed. So, some things are going to be different, where certain officers are probably going to have more hours on because they are short-staffed, and that's what happens. But I'm more concerned with policies and just how the officers interact with the public and making sure that they're taking care of those concerns more so. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I just want to ditto what Ernest said. Like, I was trying to say that in our meeting, and it just got lost. Like, I was trying to ask Chief Brackney, like, how do we work with you? And that's why I brought up my son and my daughter. Like, I have 2 Black children that are afraid of the police. And I was grateful that Chief Brackney like opened up and said, like, she has fears too. And she's a cop. She's the chief of police. And she still has fears. Like, I think we didn't tap into that when she's trying to open up to us. And I think it's so important that when we write this letter, that we say, thank you for coming. And I know, Mary, you're adamant that you sent it. Like, she didn't get it. We need to apologize. You didn't get it. We're resending it to you to have to review. Like, that felt embarrassing to me. Like, not embarrassing, but it didn't feel good to me being on this commission and she didn't do that. And so maybe like go back to my emails when I'm like, did we send it? I thought we sent it. What's happening? And so to me, I just believe in, this is a big deal that she came. It was a big deal that the mayor that was here. And I just felt like she was on defensive, and she was right to be, because we kept hammering at her. And so I care too about the policies. Like, I want to know like how we can develop a relationship, because I care about what this looks like in our city. You know, if we're wanting to push something, what better advocate than the chief of police? But if she doesn't want to come back because we were hostile towards, and I'm not saying we were hostile, but if she's like, I don't want to go back to human commission because I can't even get a word in, like, that's not a good look.
Yeah, Todd.
So I just wanted to answer a few of the questions that I heard pop up. So starting first of all, with what you just brought up, Jessica, I was, had the privilege to sit in on the first round of PCRB executive director interviews on the interview panel. Chief Brackney was there. And so I had a chance to kind of talk to her offline before the interview started. And she was very interested in talking more with the commission about the policy review. We have the use of force, constitutional procedures, and bias-based policing policies. The commission did work to review and provide recommendations on all three. I don't know that that work is complete. As I look at it, there's a lot of comment boxes and red marks, so I don't think it ever even got finished. It was included in the 2019 annual report. I'm not sure if anyone actually saw that though. So I think revisiting that, she's open to that. She expressed an interest in that.
Todd, Chantel told me that she had sent that. Is that wrong? She had sent that, the policies.
I sent that to council. I'm not sure if it got to the chief, but again, I think it's another opportunity to invite her back to the table for discussion because she was willing. The other thing I heard was, how does this dovetail with what the PCRB is doing? So they, Ashley was doing the next round, maybe the final round of interviews for the PCRB director today, in fact. So I imagine that hire is coming soon. That said, they do have a commission like this one with folks who are currently developing their ordinance, right, and their operating procedures and bylaws. So they're interested in figuring out what they're going to do. I've actually been talking a little bit with them about investigative procedures because they're trying to understand what their role might be in reviewing complaints. So I think there's an opportunity for dialogue there. Both Bellamy Brown and Bill Mendez have reached out to me to have a dialogue. So I think that's an opportunity waiting to happen. And I think that might inform how we approach police policy review as well. And the other piece that I heard mentioned multiple times was the idea of alternative interventions beyond police. And so there's kind of two tracks on that dialogue right now that I'm part of right now. I talked with Kaki Dimick and Ashley. We talked about a bit about this task force that Chief Brackney and the mayor and Councilor McGill and others are on, talking about how they look at mental health crises from the police perspective. And they have a work session with council. I believe it's scheduled for September 28th. Okay, so that Sina contacted me today actually and said she'd like to give us some more updates. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. The reason I'm also interested in that is because CRHA, which is the housing authority, has been having a spinoff group meet around crisis intervention in public housing and just subsidized housing complexes in general around crisis intervention that involves mental health, but also involves violence out in the streets, as well as other domestic issues that may be able to be settled through peer support. And so we've been talking a lot about that at the grassroots level with service providers who are doing grassroots work and are seeing individuals in crisis on a regular basis. And so we've got a dialogue going there that we may try to mush into that work session on the 28th so that there's both a community-based response as well as this upper level response to that. So just want to let you know that those things are happening and I'm engaged in those. If anybody wants to be part of that dialogue, let me know and I'll figure out a way to get you in there.
Thank you for that, Todd. That was really helpful. So I'm hearing that we want to write a response and to, to thank both the mayor and the police chief for coming to lay out some of our kind of remaining questions, to invite them each to return if they are so inclined, and I'm not sure what else there is beyond that, but if there are other ideas, I'd love to hear them.
I like what Todd said, like I said, send the letter that we sent and then resending what we had in the, I wasn't here, what the annual report that I just put in the chat, just to say like we really want to talk about specifically to Chief Brackman, like we want to revisit this and see if we can iron this out.
I'm happy to draft that. I'm also happy for someone else to take the first stab if anyone is deeply moved to do so.
I just wanted to ask if you all think that it would be helpful to coordinate with the police civilian review board before we reach out to the mayor again, not before we send a thank you letter and all of that, but inviting someone from there to come speak to our meeting or vice versa.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm seeing some thumbs up and nods. Is we can invite somebody to the next meeting, or to a future meeting.
Yeah, Lindell posted, how about proposing a joint meeting? Is that something we can do, Todd?
I think that is something to consider. We haven't talked about, I know Catherine in the chat also raised, maybe just to me, whether August 5th was our next potential publicly noticed subcommittee meeting. And you basically have permission to schedule on the first and second Thursdays if you want to, a publicly noticed meeting. We could potentially you could use one of those to invite a joint meeting. I don't see why that would be a problem. And again, Bellamy Brown has reached out to me, as has Bill Mendez. I believe Bellamy is the current chair and Bill Mendez is vice chair of the PCRB. So yeah, I think it's just an email away to coordinate something like that.
I think that's really a great idea. I think we should reach out and try to make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will coordinate doing that, and I'll draft a letter. All right. Anything else on this topic before we move on? Alex, do you have your hand up, or is that
Yeah, sorry, I just put it up. In terms of reviewing policies, do we want to meet as a whole commission with PCRB or with representatives from PCRB first, or do we want to go ahead and make a subcommittee maybe to go ahead and review those? I'm not sure which of those made sense, because we could have a subcommittee meeting a couple weeks ahead of our next committee meeting to maybe get a head start on looking over some of those policies.
While I do think that makes sense, I am a little concerned that we have so many committees, and some of them have been unable to meet just because things have been so busy. So if folks want that, I'm absolutely in support, but I wonder if we have folks who have the time and inclination to form a subcommittee to work on this. If so, I think that's fantastic.
From a scheduling perspective, if we're talking about using first and second Thursdays at 6:30 to 8:30, August 5th and August 12th are those dates. August 12th at 6:30 is also the PCRB commit. That's their meeting time. So you might want to have to think about that in terms of your scheduling.
All right, I'm not sure I get like the will of the people here about how we want how we want to proceed in terms of reviewing those. If we don't have folks to create a subcommittee, then I think we're back to reviewing it in advance of our next meeting.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And then in the meantime, also sending a letter inviting partners to come after that, the PCRB folks to come to the meeting after that or something.
Yeah. I assume it would take some time to set that up. So it gives us time to review that. All right. Next on our agenda is our OHR staff report, Todd.
Yes, that would be me. So you got finally colorful charts in my report again. So that's all thanks to Jenny Helmendauer and Lily Gates, who are interning with the Office of Human Rights. They're a tremendous help, great people doing good work. So grateful for that. If you have any questions about the numbers, just ask me. I think that, you can read the rest of this. The only thing I'm going to just sort of pop to the front here. I know that sometimes folks have been interested in engaging in community events where they might actually be able to interface with the public while we're doing some service provision outreach and so forth. The next opportunity for that is probably going to be August 6th at South First Street from 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And we'll be tabling an event that's going to have a lot of different things going on. There's going to be sort of a collaborative community cleanup there, but we'll also have some tabling and I may even be passing out some ice cream. So we'll see. But that's there for folks if they want to join in that day. Let me know. And other things that are on here that I just want to make a note of. So I mentioned that I've been working on the ordinance updates around the FAP, right? We've been talking about pursuing a FAP agreement with HUD. And I just sent another draft of the ordinance off to Eric Steinecker actually this afternoon. I had a window of time, which was amazing. And so I think I've integrated all the federal statutes into the ordinance. I've subsequently worked on it more and added some new things. But what I'm really trying to get at this point, because we have a lot of revisions to do to make it work, just to make sure that we have subsectioned off the whole housing discrimination piece so that if any changes need to be made based on federal statutes, we can make those changes quickly and not affect the rest of the ordinance, which was, I think, a suggestion that Eric had made. So that's off. I'm hoping to hear back from him. It's a big document, but it's getting there. So just to make note of that. Other things that I had on my list to bring up with you, we haven't gotten a request for the annual report yet, or the quarterly reports from council that they added that quarterly report provision to the ordinance. But just to let you know that all that information that included in an annual report and probably a more condensed form anyway is in the departmental scorecard, there's a link to that in my report. So I'm also thinking about it from the commission standpoint. If you want to provide some sort of report on the commission's activities over the past year, and so what we're reporting on is actually calendar year 2020. If there's a desire to have a narrative piece in there, and I think in the ordinance, there's something down at the very bottom of the ordinance that stipulates kind of what components you might want to include in that. And I can walk anyone through that if you're interested. But just keep in mind, if we do produce another separate written report from the departmental scorecard, which I assume that we'll probably do at some point, there should be probably a commission component to that. So I don't know, Mary, not to put that on you as chair, but I think Chantel and I worked on that together previously. So if you want to kind of rumble about that, we can.
I'm glad to do that with you.
Okay,
Todd.
well, I think we can crank it out pretty quickly. It's just a matter of kind of hashing out a game plan.
It was not clear to me from the ordinance that was passed, sort of when that requirement, kicked in, but I'm happy to work with you on it.
Yeah. I don't know, the quarterly report piece, I don't know. I think it's sort of immediately as the ordinance was passed, but they have not requested it. It wouldn't be within our capacity to even provide that. I don't think at this point, but anyway, the annual report piece has always been in there. It's actually mentioned in 2 separate spots, and I can show you where that is, but that's in the weeds. Folks, just to give you an update, I know that you've asked me to revamp the website and post a sub page with all the commission documents and stuff. Hasn't happened yet, just because there's been other priorities, but it's still on the list. So just know it's not forgotten. I think I may actually have some administrative time tomorrow in between doing investigative activities. I may fix that website to get some of that stuff up there. So it takes a little while. It's just mechanical stuff, but they'll get it done. With regard to the Facebook page, nobody's asked about that recently, but I think it got taken. Charlene took it down, and so now they're trying to figure out how to get it back up. So that's where we're at with that. So there you go. And the emails, same thing. I think there's a policy in the work to make emails available for you guys. As with any government thing, it takes a little while, then maybe longer than we might expect, but it's in the works. So there you go for that. Let's see, what's the other thing I was going to bring up? I think that might be it, except for the subcommittee thing. I want to make sure that this time, if you want to have a publicly noticed set of subcommittee meetings, I need to post notice tomorrow. So for the August 5th one. So I would put it out to the commission. If there are 2 committees that would like to meet on August 5th, make it known and I will post notice. I saw in the chat that people are a little concerned, rightfully so, about scheduling anything on August 12th. If that's the sentiment, no worries. We do not need to schedule anything on August 12th. It is available to you if you want it. So if in the meeting tonight we can decide which of our 4 committees would like to meet and on which dates, that would be super helpful, because then I can get the notice up and we won't scramble. That should be, I think that's everything. I can talk forever, so I'll stop now.
What about the director hiring? Any update on that?
Very good question. So with the last round of PCRB director hiring interviews done today, I believe, that should move forward. And then, the fact that there's still no HR director makes the hiring complex, because there's other staff kind of filling in for that role. But as soon as that is done, I believe that the next move is to schedule interviews for the HRC director. So there you have it. It's in process, but yeah, there's an order of operations, and that the PCRB one, I guess, was posted first, so that's got to get done first.
All right. Should we take up now whether there are 2 committees that want to meet on August 5th?
I'd like the engagement committee to meet. We have some follow-up action items.
All right. Anything from accessibility, housing, or legal representation? We're gonna those committees planning to meet during August?
I'm making a face. We should have a
Nice.
housing meeting. I'm actually at the beach, but I'm not gonna have a meeting on August 12th. So I guess we'll have a meeting on August 5th.
Okay.
Great. And then as far as just scheduling goes, does anybody have a preference as to who would like to go first? Because it matters, because I have to post them. with
6:30
specific
for housing, please.
times. Okay.
I have
Is
a
that-
question. I
Yeah.
just want to make absolutely sure, when do we have to be first for in person?
Not until September.
Okay, great.
So is community, Jessica, are you okay going at 7:30 then?
We can't go, okay.
Can't have them both at the same time.
No, I know, I'm saying, I don't think our thing should take 30 minutes. We can't have it at 6 o'clock. I thought it starts at 6. Our time starts at 6.
Rather than 6:30?
6 works for me.
Yeah, and just finish in
Okay.
30 minutes.
I'll check with, I assume if Brian hears me, he may have, I don't know if he has anything.
No, that's what I'm asking, is our time from 6:30 or at 6?
I had scheduled the exact same window as the regular meeting, so 6:30 to 8:30.
Okay, that's fine. So 7,
Yeah.
that's fine. Right.
Okay, I'll put it at 7:30, just in case housing wants an hour. Catherine, do you imagine it'll take more than half an hour? If you want to do it only half an hour, we can schedule.
I love the idea of a 30-minute meeting. Let's make it 30 minutes and we'll be concise.
Great. So 6:30 for housing, 7 for engagement, and nothing on August 12th. But engagement and housing are on August 5th. Thank you so much.
All right, anything else for Todd? Thank you for that report. All right, I guess we will move on to our work session and ad hoc committee updates. First up is the Accessibility Committee.
Alrighty, as you can see from our notes, we were able to meet in June, and we covered a lot of ground in that meeting. We have a major push right now towards drafting a proposal for a language accessibility plan for the city of Charlottesville. I misspoke a couple meetings ago. I will not be drafting it. It's a lot of legalese, but I would like to draft a proposal to the council for a language access plan. I was able to meet with IRC interpreter services, so we can talk about like feasibility for what it would look like in terms of their structure and costs. I got to meet with Dean Barreras. They should have some cool data coming our way in about 2 weeks because someone's poor computer melted and they have to like get a backup server. It's a whole long thing. And I should have some data coming from IRC about individuals whose primary language is a language other than English coming down the pike soon. Because the census data is like really patchy and it's outdated and it probably doesn't paint a good picture. Languages spoken in our city currently. So we're meeting with people, we're getting information, and we should, since we're just a 2-person commission, Sue and I have already agreed we're gonna have a phone call while Sue is traveling and I'm here probably in the next 2 weeks so we can figure out what drafting something's actually going to look like.
Yeah, we're trying to get conversation with neighborhood development people because of the fact that we keep losing ADA coordinators over there, and whether it makes sense for that person to be in neighborhood development instead of some other department that might connect better to us. Anyway, City Hall is finally opening up, so I expect sometime before I go out of town, I can talk to neighborhood development and see how we're going.
The main purpose of that meeting is to ask about their language access plan because they are one of the few departments in the city that receives federal funding and they have a plan. And so we also hope to learn from them about what their implementation of that plan has been like, its success, and if they've received any sort of feedback from people in our community who have used their interpretation services.
Yeah.
So that's also the main plan, the point of connecting with neighborhood development. I think Todd had a point. Todd was
just going to make note that I think there may be an offer, and I have to go back and email and look at it, for someone from NDS to provide an overview of the scope of the ADA coordinator's responsibilities. Because one of the things I'm learning is that they have quite a few sort of technical oversight responsibilities in addition to sort of receiving complaints. And so it might be really helpful. I know that when Allison talked with us, she was pretty new to the job. So I think she was trying to wrap her mind around all the things that she was having to think about. So I'll circle back with Ashley because we were emailing about this, but I'm seeing a Teams message now. There's an individual named Jack who might be able to provide us an oversight of the technical aspects of the job. So anyway, check in with me. I can see if we can coordinate that for the two of you if you'd like.
So Wolfgang, I just to clarify, are you talking about pushing for the like a citywide language access plan versus like,
yes.
like, yeah, okay. I think that's terrific. Like,
Yeah.
I think that should exist. All right, is that it from accessibility?
Oh, yep. That concludes our segment, unless Sue has anything. Sue's nodding. That concludes our segment.
Okay.
Come on.
Hi, Ashley. We're glad to have you. All right, next up, we have the Community Engagement Committee.
So we gave a brief overview of this last time when we met, but I'll just reiterate that we just have some action items. There's language within like our documents that we want to make, just in general, like our HRC ordinance document. It's just really wordy. So figuring out how to break that down. I don't know if you were able to look into that, Todd, for us, like being able to use more simple language. So we have brochures, old brochures that Todd sent to us for review. The link is there. And so we're going to be looking through them to see like what updates we need to make and just kind of judging them up so that they can be things that we can hand out. But if we also have social media presence, we can place them there. And we're working, and Janet is working to put together like a resolution for our next subcommittee meeting, which we weren't able to do. And so those are our next steps. So creating more standard informal language for our resolutions, so we can give that, updating brochures. And then Todd showed us an awesome a magnet that he had. We're thinking about like bringing that back. And that was pretty much it.
Jessica, to respond to your question, so I'm currently making the ordinance much more complex and much more dense because that is what's required by law to become a FAP. However, I think what you were talking about was a companion document which translates some of the more technical things. So if we write an ordinance that's complex, we write a companion document that translates it into maybe more readable English, let's say. But no, I haven't touched that. I've just been busy making it more complicated. And the other question was around resolutions, right? Resolutions do have specific language. I did check in with Kina about, where do those conventions come from? And the resolution language, she said, well, that's a great question. No one's ever asked that before. And it's sort of by convention, but whether or not you can pull out all those sort of whereas language, that's a big legal question. So that would have to go back to city attorney. I have not been pestering Allison Davies lately because I know she's quite busy with certain statutes and so forth. But in any case, that we could go back to that. But I think the key thing is if we write ordinance and resolution language that is technical, I think there's never any reason why you can't create a companion document that translates it. So that's always possible. It's just finding the sort of the bandwidth to make that happen.
Hi, Todd, it's Allison.
Wow, Allison is here too. That's exciting.
All right, anything else with regard to the Community Engagement Committee? Okay, Catherine, housing.
Yes, our update is that we have not had a meeting.
But we will. Okay, and then finally, Legal Representation Committee.
Who is that?
There's no chair, and there's and I believe it's on the committee currently are Jessica, Catherine, and Lindell, but we haven't met. And I'm speaking because I keep pushing it because I heard this good idea from Alex and Wolfgang back when they were reviewing our public hearing procedures, and they said, why don't we have a legal representation plan for parties to a complaint? So people who file a complaint with the OHR. So there is a wonderful, densely worded draft resolution for you to consider that outlines a potential fund for legal representation for parties to a complaint in an allegation of discrimination. So anyway, if anybody who wants to look at it, it is out there and available, or if you want me to resend it, I'm happy to do so. But I think it wouldn't cost a lot, I don't think. And right now I've been trying to find pro bono attorneys for people. I've been having some success doing that. And it's good because I got a case that just moved to mediation, and that person's going into mediation with representation, which is way better than going pro se. So anyway, but that's a free person, and those are hard to find. So anyway, that's why we want to propose that.
So do we actually need a committee to deal with this, or should we, is it, I mean, if there's like a lot of work to do, then a committee makes sense. But if there's something that exists that the commission needs to talk to, I guess the question is like, is there really a need for a committee, or can it come directly to the entire commission? I don't know, because I haven't looked at it.
It's out there for both. It's up to you all to consider whether you want it in committee or if you want to review it as a group and just make suggestions, and I can add your suggestions in and revisions, and then we pass it, you vote on it basically, and then we can propose it to council.
Well, because we don't have any more committee times available other than August 12th, which we all agree is not a great meeting date, maybe we just put it on the agenda for the next meeting and circulate it. Like, can we put it out in the packet? And if at that point we think additional work is needed, then we can make a determination for a committee. Does that make sense? All right. Next on our agenda is new business. Is there new business?
I don't know if this is considered news business, but for A12, is it possible for just to send out a statement saying that families and those that were harmed in that event, that our hearts and our prayers are with them?
I mean, I think we can absolutely issue such a statement. All right.
I don't think we need any new business. I think we've got enough on our plate right now.
Sue, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
I said, I don't think we need any new business. I think we've got enough on our plate right now.
Okay. I'm glad to draft that, like a very short statement about people who were harmed on August 12th. Yeah.
Or you might, and I may be getting the language confused here, but you might be able to do that as a proclamation and have council read it. I know that other human rights commissions, especially Virginia Beach, they're really good at that. They do that for lots of things to try to raise awareness to ideas and events and things like that. So
what do we need to do to turn it into a proclamation legally?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Do we just declare it to be a proclamation?
No, I think there may be a few drafts of proclamations somewhere in the bowels of this office. I can look around, but I can also ask Hina how a commission might go about that and get back to you on that.
That'd be great. Lindell, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I think it's a great idea to do this, and thank you, Jessica, for bringing this up. But I'm also a really big proponent of when we make statements in solidarity and things like that, that we actually also talk about what it is that we're doing, like what actions are being taken, how are we moving forward. So a proclamation may make sense because then we can do those, we can add those kinds of things to it. So that's all I would recommend, is to not just talk about how we feel about things, but what we're actually doing.
Okay, Jeanette?
I wonder too if the whole proclamation tool could replace what we were interested in regards to Facebook or publicly, like maybe we just lean into utilizing proclamations more, if that's a current tool.
Wolfgang?
It is connected to the work that the commission has done. I mean, back in 2015, we had many members of the commission sitting on that blue ribbon panel that gathered community response of what to do with the statues. And so this is sort of coming full circle to draw attention to the fact that we have been working on this issue for a long time, and then also to acknowledge the pain that was caused in our community because of those. So I think that a statement honoring pain that was caused is also connected to the work that the commission is doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think while I'm happy to draft something, I probably could use some help from somebody about the historic work of the commission, because I have not been on very long.
I might be able to help you on that, because I was on the Blue Ribbon Commission also, representing the planning, representing this commission.
Okay. Jessica?
So I have a question and a wild thing if no one knows the answer. So I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's people who drive around town with Confederate flags at the back of their trucks. Is it possible to request that they can't do that in our city?
I don't think we could legally.
I don't think we can do that.
I mean, people have a First Amendment right to be assholes. Sorry.
I just had to ask.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I mean, I feel you, but. All right, Sue, I can consult with you about describing our historic work, because that's a little bit outside my my knowledge and expertise. All right, any other new business? All right, this brings us to matters by the public and another opportunity for public comment. You can use the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, press *9.
No hands raised at the moment.
All right, I just want to say, you know, to anybody who may be out there, the Human Rights Commission very actively welcomes your comments and, you know, contributions in future meetings. Next up on our agenda, then we have commissioner updates.
Perhaps I should at least say something about the annual meeting of the state, so-called state association. It actually did meet with very few people in attendance on that first Saturday in June. And we did actually approve changes in the bylaws, which I really should get out to you guys. Not that many of you are probably good, but at least Todd will know what they are, and I'm still going to maybe encourage other people to be more involved in that state association if we can get it functioning a little better. Todd, don't let anybody know I said that.
Thanks, Sue. Any additional updates from commissioners? Ernest?
I don't have an update, but I just wanted to say kudos to city government and officers and what have you over the weekend. You know, so I think, you know, what they did this weekend, working together, moving smoothly, the inconveniences of what may have been an issue of people getting around was worth it. So I just want to say city government, city council, those type of things. Thank you. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I think it was rolled out in such a way that, I mean, we didn't see a lot of kind of white supremacists show up because it was announced very well. I thought it was very well handled too. So I share that. I share that. Thanks. Jeanette, is that a new hand up?
Yes, and it was right along, I was going to say very similar to Ernest, to really thank the activists. Many of you are here on this call, but out there too, who to Ziana, who started the petition way back when, and the many activists over the years that have put forth to have the removal. It's really powerful painful work that has not gone unseen. And it was a moment, we actually talked about it today with some of our youth food justice interns about the whole process. And it's an amazing opportunity. I mean, an amazing advocacy action.
Yeah, agreed. I thought I saw one other hand up, but now I don't see it. Okay, if there are no further updates. Our next on the agenda is next steps and adjourn. So I think, I have some next steps in terms of a letter and a proclamation, whatever that turns out to be, that I will draft. I know we've got some committee meetings that will happen in the next month, and we will have some planned for discussion at the August meeting. Any other next steps that anyone cares to discuss? Todd.
I do my best to try to follow this chat. Brian mentioned that we need to, for this proclamation, we may need to have it done in Tukena by July 27th for the August 2nd meeting. And I need to talk to, I need to figure out how to get it on the agenda. So I need to talk to Ashley about that. Because I think there's a July 20th agenda meeting. I'm trying to figure this out as I go here, but yes, just know those dates, have it written before the 27th.
I mean, unless people were envisioning something very, very long and complicated, I think that's completely doable. And that's useful to know, of course. Sue, are you speaking? You're mute.
It should be simple.
Okay. All right. Any other matters? Well, you all will get, another 41 minutes of your life back because we are ending early, but we have lots of work to do in the next month and at our next meeting. So I look forward to working with all of you and thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you,
Good to
Todd.
see everyone.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Nice to
Have a
see
good evening,
everybody.
folks.
Good night. Good to see
Thanks
you,
for
Ashley.
joining us. Yeah, Ashley.
Yeah,
that's great.
thank you, Georgia.